The PlayStation was a revolutionary console at the time. Even as a hardcore Sega Saturn fan, I can't say otherwise. It pushed gaming from a hobby that nerds would indulge with to something that everyone can enjoy for better or worse. And without it, gaming might not be as big as it is today. It housed some of the most iconic games of that generation, some of which were only seen on Nintendo systems, and was the start of a dynamic shift in the gaming space. While I'm not a fan of modern PlayStation, I do find a lot of their tactics quite predatory, I still have a lot of fond memories with the older systems, and I was able to experience a lot of games that I normally would not have been able to, thanks to these demo discs that came free of magazines. It was such a neat idea. Rather than spending money on a game that you might not like, you could instead play a short snippet of that game on a demo disc. They were always followed by this iconic backing track, and the background for the selection screen was always some sort of psychedelic image that sometimes would give me nightmares. In my defense, some of these do look a bit too fleshy for my liking. On one of these demo discs, one of the several Demo 1 releases, there was a game called Jumping Flash. It was a game that caught my eye instantly. That being said, I was a young dumb child when I started playing this, so I didn't really get far in the demo, just mainly messing around in the 3D space. I still remember enjoying it. I would eventually forget about this game for seemingly years until I booted up my PS5 to see Jumping Flash. Suddenly, all those memories of playing it came flooding back. I knew this game. I never owned it officially, but now I can. So, I brought it, played through it all and thought, why didn't Sony push this character to be the mascot of the PS1? And I'm being serious about it. Jumping Flash was probably one of the earliest examples of a fully 3D first-person shooter done well on a console. There were shooters made before it, I'm not saying it's the first of its kind, but this is definitely one of the most promising examples of a fully 3D first-person shooter done at that time period that didn't run awfully. Along with this, the control scheme is quite forward-facing. I had no issue getting to grips with the controls, which is quite big, bearing in mind that back then, game control language wasn't really figured out. There was no control standard for first-person shooters on consoles at the time, so for quite a lot of games it was basically the Wild Wild West for control schemes. Hell, there's one review for Alien Resurrection where the biggest complaint is the fact that it dared to use both analog sticks in the control scheme, one for moving, one for aiming, which, as I'm sure you probably know, is the common standard now. This game is made by Excellent Application Create Team, also known as Exact for short, with some assistance from Ultra, who primarily worked on the story and cutscenes for the game. Exact were asked to make a game for Sony's upcoming PlayStation 1, after Sony saw their previous game, Geograph Seal, being shown on the Sharp X6 8000, hoping that they'll be able to show off the PlayStation 1's capabilities. So Exact went straight to work. The goal was to create something that could rival Sonic or Mario in the platformer space, since that was pretty big at the time, with the main character, Robbit, being used as a very early mascot for the console, before being replaced by Crash, Spyro, Lara Croft, basically any popular game really. So the main question that was on my mind was, why wasn't this character the mascot for the PlayStation? Not only was it the first original game character made for the system, but it's also, to some people, the earliest 3D platformer in general to be made using fully 3D graphics. Although, as a side note, I class this game more as a shooter than a platformer, but that's just me being pedantic. It was a real pioneer title, swinging at full force straight out of the gate, showcasing exactly what Sony's grey power brick could do. And it did very well with reviewers, scoring fairly high across the board, with several reviews at the time stating how revolutionary the game was. But the thing is about a lot of games that came out around this time period is, As standards change, newer games come out that push the envelope further, which can cause some people's perspectives to shift. Games that review well back then might not have the same luck when seen through the lens of someone playing it today. So, I want to look at this game from someone who's only fully beaten this game somewhat recently with a modern eye, and see if it really is a forgotten pioneer that deserves more credit as Sony's first true mascot contender. Let's jump into Jumping Flash. Before jumping into the gameplay, let's go over the plot for this game. The nefarious Baron Aloha is taking large chunks of land from Planet Crater to help build his private space resort. Knowing that taking large chunks of land probably isn't good for the planet in the long run, they dispatch a Robbit to put a stop to Baron Aloha's plan. And that's it. Now let's jump into the gameplay. As I said before, this is one of the earliest examples of a first-person shooter on the original PlayStation, so you need to take that in mind when looking over the controls. I'm not saying they're bad, but there are some omissions that would have helped a lot while playing the game. First thing of note is, you see them analog sticks? Yeah, they're not used here. This game came out before the DualShock was even a concept in Sony's eyes. Instead, you move around with the directional buttons. You jump with X, pressing again to double and triple jump, and you shoot with circle. Pressing square will use up any of the special weapons that you've collected from these robots, which all have different effects depending on what item is used, and you can free aim by pressing R1 or R2. This is mainly used to snipe faraway enemies, without having to move your entire body to shoot them. As I said before, there are some omissions that would have been very useful in this game, mainly strafe. You can't strafe in this game. If you need to fire, you either need to stand still and blast at them and hope there's no retaliation fire, or move your entire body in the direction you want to face. It can be a bit annoying at times, but not to the point that it ruins the gameplay. Newer games have these features because of older games like this. The feeling of being a sitting duck can cause frustration when you know that there is an easy solution for this. However, if you put yourself in the mind of a designer in this time period, this is uncharted territory. The game control language that we have today was built off the back of these older games, so because of this, I am willing to give it some leeway. As I said before, it never really becomes an issue during gameplay, apart from one or two times where the level design makes it so you can't jump out of the way. Despite these parts though, I was able to blitz through this game perfectly fine. The controls just feel right anyway. Robbit has this weight to them. You can double and triple jump to get around the place, but when you land, you have this weight that just sounds so satisfying when you finally land on that one enemy that's been giving you grief for a lot of the level. The camera will pan down to your feet when you're double or triple jumping or reach a certain height threshold, which is great because it gives you the opportunity to position yourself so you don't accidentally fall down a pit, using your drop shadow as a guideline so you know exactly where you're landing. This is a particularly great touch, as it was something that even platformers nowadays lack sometimes, an obvious guideline to where the player will be landing. Some games forget this and make it so the character's shadow is caused by lighting effects, which causes all sorts of issues when you're trying to get around the level design. One modern example of this would be the Pac-Man World remake. In the PS1 version, you had this drop shadow which meant you could effortlessly jump from platform to platform because you knew where you were landing. In the remake, they changed the shadow to be more dynamic with the lighting, resulting in some deaths that can feel unfair because of this. So seeing Exact tackle this issue this early on was very surprising. It shows that they had the foresight to try and make the platforming as readable as possible for the player, taking a very forward-looking approach, which is appreciated. Along with this, thanks to the floaty jump, you can get a good grasp on what distances you can and can't jump fairly easily. So if you think, oh, I think I can make that jump, chances are you can. Most of the time. There are still times where I under or overshoot myself and end up falling to my doom, but I'm pretty sure that's just a skill issue. And again, just to clarify, the floaty jump is a good thing for a game like this. The maps here are very vertical, requiring the player to jump off platform to reach the top. So a floaty jump where the player can maneuver themselves while in the air was essential to make the platforming as fair as they could. If it was not floaty, it would cause the player to get frustrated when they miss a jump. So it was a very deliberate game design choice, which I think paid off. The game feel for this title is great. Even though it was my first time playing the game, I felt right at home with the controls. Even though this game was the first of its kind, you can tell that the developers tried their very best to make it as user-friendly as possible. If you played Exact's last game, Geography, you can see where they got the blueprints for this game. It's pretty neat seeing how they took the gameplay of their previous title and modernized it for the PlayStation, taking what worked and refining it for this new generation. When you first start the game, you're presented by this very charming title screen. It just screams early PlayStation in the best possible way. The skybox being this deep shade of blue, the logo proudly presenting itself, and the main theme playing just ties it all together. Starting a new game throws you straight into the action. There's no intro cutscene when you start a new game, instead it plays just before you get to the title screen. You go through 6 worlds, consisting usually of 2 levels and then a boss, looking for 4 jet pods which are shaped like carrots within a time limit, and then making your way to the exits once you have all 4. This is the core of the gameplay. Every level revolves around you getting these 4 jet pods and then hopping through the level's exit. And these levels can get pretty damn big later on. If you don't know exactly where these pods are, you'll be running around looking high and low for these things. They are pretty well hidden. Some are hidden in far off corners of the map, others really high up, and some are just hidden in plain sight. The positions do not change though, so if you're going through repeat playthroughs and you know exactly where they were last time, they're going to be in the same location this time. Just be sure that while you are trying to get these jet pods, you don't run out of time, fall off the level, or run out of energy, because you have to do the entire thing again. There are no checkpoints. If you fall off the map with 3 of the 4 jet pods collected, you'll need to collect all 4 from the beginning. Each level is also accompanied with a very pleasant sounding soundtrack, carrying this bubbly, joyful tone throughout the entire thing. Honestly, it's a pretty pleasant listen. There are also enemies dotted all over the map, some being very easy to dodge, while others are more annoying than anything. The main one being these weird looking flowers that will constantly shoot you if you go near them. These are usually fine to dodge if you can jump out of the way, but some levels make jumping a bit hard to do, so if you are firing at them and they return fire, chances are you're going to get hit unless you can maneuver yourself out of the way in time. Thankfully, the game gives you a large variety of weapons to use against them. You have the cherry bomb, which lets off a huge explosion, rockets that hone in on whatever is in sight, spiral fireworks which dot the floor, and the Roman candle which will just unleash a massive laser beam in front of Robbit. There are also power-ups that can help aid the player. You have health pickups which will increase your health in small or large amounts depending on which one you pick up, power pills which give you invincibility and basically destroy any enemy you touch, time extenders add 30 seconds on top of the time, and time stop completely freezes the level. Time pauses, enemies stop moving, and the most useful part of it is every single jet pod that has yet to be collected will show up on the minimap on the top right hand of the screen, giving the player a rough outline of where they should be looking. Lastly, every first level of each world has a bonus level inside. These all require you to pop the balloons, which you can do by either jumping or shooting them. Balloons usually drop a very handy weapon for the player to use, sometimes power-ups, stuff like that. And if you're able to pop all of them before time runs out, you get an extra life, which will be handy because some of these levels do require you to jump over some pretty devious pits. Each world in Jumping Flash has its own theme to it. You have the grass world, It's fairly basic, the first level introducing you to the mechanics of the game, while the second one invites risk, with lava being strewn about the floor, meaning the player has to learn how to navigate around these hazards. You also have these frying pans that just shoot Robbit into the sky. The boss for this world is a dragon. They are very easy to deal with, literally just dodge its fire attack, bounce on its head and just shoot it with your gun. The desert world is also fairly simple, however this is where the game starts to hide some of the jet pods in far off areas. The player will need to make sure they go far and wide while looking for these. The second level in this world has an interesting gimmick where the player is in a labyrinth, unable to jump due to the low ceiling. This is one of the more awkward levels as well, because without the ability to jump, the player won't be able to easily dodge most of the incoming projectiles from these flowers. Thankfully, it's fairly short and isn't that annoying. The boss here also isn't much. Like the dragon, you can just keep jumping on it while shooting your gun. It does, however, change tactic near the end, which can catch you off guard. After that, you're then thrust into the theme park level, where the platforming starts to become more difficult. You can use these hot air balloons to get to higher areas, however, as they are more rounded, you will end up slipping off if you spend too much time standing still on these, so you need to be quick so you don't end up falling off. The second level introduces these auto rail segments, which I get a lot of fun from because you go really fast on these. Along with this, I'm just genuinely a fan of theme park aesthetics in games. I don't know why, I just have a lot of fun with them. The boss here is also a bit more involved. You're fighting this clown thing who sprouts from these teacups, however different body parts will come out of these teacups. If you pay attention though, you'll be able to deal with him relatively quickly. The world after this is the ice world, introducing everyone's favourite mechanic, ice physics. If you're moving and come to a stop, you'll keep moving at a reduced speed, so you need to be on the ball when jumping from place to place, as you can accidentally fall into the abyss if you're not careful. The second level here is also another labyrinth like in the second world, a bit more complex though, having different floors broken up by these elevators. As long as you make sure that you grab one jet pod per floor, however, you should be able to go through relatively fine. The boss for this world is a robotic turtle, but unlike the previous fight, it doesn't really have anything up its sleeve other than these bombs that can catch you unawares if you're too busy jumping on its back. After all of that, you have the cityscape. This one is where the platforming becomes a lot more difficult, with you having to position yourself just right and time your jumps well enough to land on these moving platforms. Both levels asking the player to pay attention to the layout so they don't fall and lose a life. The boss is also fairly unique, as they can transform into one of several different forms, each one attacking the player in a unique way. After all of that, you reach the final world. This one's a bit different as there's only one level and 2 boss fights. The level here is also quite unique when compared to the worlds before it, as you're going through a space station. The open design of this level lends itself to some really fun platforming, as you can basically take any path you want to these jet pods. The level having this really fair balance between risk and reward, because while you could be rewarded with a very quick shortcut, the risk of falling to your doom is always hanging above you. After getting to the end of this level, you're thrust into the first of 2 boss fights, this time pitting you against a carbon copy of yourself. This Robbit has pretty much all of the same abilities that you do, only they can dash and spawn loyal minions whenever they want to. They are constantly trying to jump on you. They will shoot you if you're above them, although with enough patience you'll soon down them and move on to the final boss, Baron Aloha, sporting a mech that has 2 different modes to take you out with. The more damage you do to him, the more his mech gets destroyed, until all he's left with is the head, which will dart all across the map until eventually either you take it out, it takes you out, or you run out of time. Can I just say though, massive fan of the background for this fight. The psychedelic colours really bring this sense of finality to the fight. Once you take him out, you move on to the credits. Using the tools given to you, you will find yourself beating this game in about 1 hour. What is your reward? How will this story end? Will we get to see the stolen chunks return to their rightful place? No. Instead, you have the Baron taunting you, saying it's not the end, you're chucked back to the start, and a new option is presented to you. Extra mode. Yep. Turns out you need to beat the game twice to actually see the end. But what is extra mode? Is it all too different from the original mode? Well, extra mode is where Jumping Flash tries to challenge you. The location of the jet pods are in more challenging areas, enemies are thrown everywhere, the timer is halved, levels have changed a bit, and to top it all off, the maze levels are now completely different. The training wheels are off. The game expects mastery from you now. This is the challenge run. It's nothing that will make you chuck your controller across the room, but it will test you. The game expects you to know how to control Robbit, and will use that against you at times. There will be times when you have to jump to far distances, enemies will get the drop on you, and, in one occasion, swarm you the moment the level starts. Yeah, that's fair game. Even the bonus stages are more difficult now. Thankfully, the world order is pretty much the same, so nothing new there. After enough time, you'll find yourself fighting against Baron once again, finally beating him for good, and can finally see the ending, where the chunks from Planet Crater are returned to their rightful place. Thankfully, no third playthrough is needed to see this. Although a new mode does unlock, it's called Bonus. This mode gives you 5 jumps, you can get some incredible height with this. It's such a fun time to just mess around the levels, going as high as you possibly can and fall down, crushing whatever poor robot is below you. You don't get anything from completing this though, so it's mainly just used for fun. And yeah, that's Jumping Flash. A fairly simple, fun romp. It reviewed well when it came out and it's easy to see why. The art style is cute, the gameplay is solid, and overall the feeling when you're controlling Robbit is great. It was such a cultural icon when it came out that there's a cameo of Robbit in Astrobot, which is always nice to see. But most of all, it proved to people at the time that you can make a shooter platformer from a first person's perspective. It offered something that the platformers of the time could not provide, which is some solid vertical based level design in a way that others just could not do. And even now it has this unique feel to it that is yet to be matched. Some people say this is the first 3D platformer, and to some credit, it did release just a year before Super Mario 64 came out. But to me, this is more of a shooter platformer hybrid. It has more in common with Mirror's Edge in my eyes than something like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro or Mario. Shooting is very much a core mechanic on top of the platforming gameplay here. You can buy Jumping Flash on the PSN store under their Classics collection. It has the standard things all PS1 re-releases have, like save states or a rewind feature, but it also has trophies. I was able to get them all on my first time playing, so if you're into trophy collection, then this is an easy one to do. I was also surprised of how much I enjoyed this game. I always remember playing the demo, like I said, so being able to experience the full game as an adult makes me appreciate it all the more. There are 2 more games under this name, which I will be talking about at some point, although the third one never came out in Japan, so fingers crossed the lack of a French translation won't be too much of an issue. There's also a spiritual successor to this game that's currently out on Steam called Forza Polopol, which looks to be more of a modern take of the Jumping Flash gameplay. So I would say if you like this, that might also be up your alley, but I haven't played the game yet, so I can't really say. It's short, sweet, and a lot of fun, and also a vital part of PlayStation's history. So please, give this game a go if you're interested in playing one of the first ever 3D platformers ever made. It still holds up remarkably well, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the other 2 games have in store for me. Robbit may have lost the mascot race, but they deserve a seat on the PlayStation Hall of Fame next to titles like Ape Escape, Jak and Daxter, and Sly Cooper. So basically titles that Sony refused to touch with a 10-foot pole for some reason. Come on Sony, I'm begging you here. Please do something with these games. Hello, thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. This one was a lot of fun to make. Jumping Flash is just a really enjoyable game, so going through it a few times to get footage was a very fun experience. If you like me talking about older games, I did another video based on Sonic R, or if you want another PS1 hidden gem, I recommend you watch this video based on Silent Bomber. It's another PS1 classic that I think deserves more love. I was thinking of jumping straight into Jumping Flash 2 and Rabbit Mondu, but a surprise release has caught my attention, so I want to do a video based off that first. So if you're interested, do consider subscribing. It does help out a lot, and you get to see whenever I make new videos. I'm also on Blue Sky, so if you want to ask me any questions or recommend me some really good old games, you can contact me on there. That's me done. I'll see you next time. Ciao.